Back here for Optics EQ, and on December the 10th, Friday, I'm going to look for a race at Aqueduct again. We're back at Aqueduct. I'm going to show you how I found this race. First of all, when you get Optics Plot, you get this utility called Optics Scan. So I'm going to click that. And what that does, it brings up all the races, all the plot information for races for that day. And so what I like to do is I like to kind of sort or filter a little bit here. So the first thing I look at is the plot fit. And I don't want a red plot, so you'll see numbers alongside the red. They're usually 1, 2, or 3. So anything above 3 or greater than 3 is not red. So that's the first thing I like to do. Second thing I like to do is where you see this Q change, I like it to be no. And what does that mean? It means it's green. It means there's not much change between the plots in terms of the standard and surface and distance. I find that those plots are a lot more reliable. And then the diamond, all this says is how many horses have diamonds. I'm okay with one horse being a diamond, but when you get multiple horses, the plot becomes a lot less reliable. So I'm going to say less than or equal to 1. And so now I got a subset of the list that I was kind of looking at. Sometimes what I like to do is look at races that have high speed ratings because sometimes the race shape may fall apart, and usually there's opportunity in those types of things. So I'm going to look for anything that's above 5. 5 and 6 are the flames. So greater than or equal to 5. And then I'm just going to sort here on speed rating. Yeah, I want everything like kind of above 40, and that should give us enough heat. So these are kind of races that, a subset of races that look like they might fall apart and favor late pace, squares, and so forth. But what you have to do is kind of dig in each one of them. You see this race comes up, Aqueduct Race 4 on Friday. So I'm going to go into this race and take a look at the plot. And I want to verify the parameters I set. Does this race look like potential for the speeds to come back to the field? And it does, because look at the run styles. You have 2 E's, okay? So they almost cancel each other out. That's the 1 and the 9. And they're right on top of each other. You can see visually, you can see this race has a lot of pace. You got horses that are all clustered together in quadrant 1 with circles. Usually indication someone's coming from off the pace. And again, if you look at our speed rating, it's 45. So you got, both dynamics there, the high contention, high speed rating. We're looking off the pace. We're looking for squares. So that would point me to the 3, 4, 5, and 6. And those are the horses I want to evaluate as potential plays in this race, okay? So let's go to the grid. I'm going to start with the number 3, 16 tons. Okay, now this horse has won his last 2 races at Finger Lakes. They're shipping him in. He's third off a layoff. He's got some good things going for him. Rice ships the horse. Ortiz takes them out. Lots of good things to look at. The horse, speed figure-wise, fits with the range. But notice his last 2 races, he's been on easy lead and he dueled. However, this horse does not need the lead. Okay, so if you go back, you can see some of his form back here. He ran an 82 back as a 3-year-old, coming from off the pace a little bit. Came from off the pace in the mud in Aqueduct, going 6.5 furlongs. This horse does not need the lead, just circumstances probably in those races where there wasn't much pace in the race, and so he was on the lead. So this horse is a potential contender. The things I don't like about this horse is obviously coming from Finger Lakes. This is kind of a class challenge, but you can see like this horse was running against much better horses early in his career, kind of tailed off, and maybe he's coming back to form. So this is a horse I would consider. Don't like the price either at 5-2. But when you're looking at exotics, this is a horse you might want to include. But there is another horse in here, so don't get discouraged. There's another horse in here interesting that might spice up the exotics, but this is one I would consider. The other ones that we talked about was the 4. This horse looks great on the plot, big square in quadrant 2. The problem is the layoff. We talked about this before. Okay, so this horse has been running against higher, price races, huge layoff, and then a drop. I mean, you're paying for this horse to hang around, and you drop him. To me, at this point, it looks like they want to just kind of get rid of the horse. So for me, I'm not crazy about these horses. I could see this horse being if you're playing exotics, and you got one leg that, one slot that you vertically, you want to kind of just spread in, fine. Just not a horse I want to kind of rely on the win in. And again, he's 4.5 to 1. He's not going to be much above that, so not really value-wise. The number 5 is a little bit interesting. Papa Tombi, almost in a negative sense. Looks like a horse that's improving. He's less Optics Fig fits with these horses. And so you would say, oh, this horse looks pretty good, right? Here's the problem with this guy. Um, let's look at when he actually wins or runs a good race. So I'm going to look at races where he's first or second. Speed figures aren't that high either, but look, he's up close. We've talked about the pace in this race. So even though he plots as a square, he's really not that type of run style. So his run style, let's go back to the plot, is more of a presser. So that's a problem, right? So he's, even though he looks good as a closer, that's not his style. So he's vulnerable. And I'm going to show you something here too. When you look at his races where he did well, let's look at what quadrant he was in. This is his races, his past races. He's in quadrant 1 or 2. I'm going to clear this out, clear the filters. And I want to look at when he is, let me just go back to number 5, filter on number 5, Papa Tom B. And let's look at when he's quadrant 4, which is he today. You can see he doesn't run nearly as well, right? So that's not his style. So I think he's compromised of the closers. So we got a closer that's coming off a long layoff. We got a closer that's compromised because it doesn't really fit his run style. That leaves us with the one that we mentioned, the 3, and also the 6, who's a huge price. And that's an American Star. Now, he didn't run all that great last time. Was in the mud, and it was off a layoff of 56 days. So this is his second race. He has back numbers that fit, and he's truly a horse that likes to come from off the pace. So he's 20-1 in the morning line. I think this horse has got a lot of value in terms of exotic play. And I'm going to do like what we did yesterday. So let's look at him in fast-paced races. He competes really well with others in here. Let's go to the sprints. Uh, numbers wise, he lines up. Let me get everybody in here so we can do this. Numbers wise, he lines up pretty good. So he's got some races in here. When he gets enough pace in the race, he can come calling late. So again, in review of this race, I'm looking for off the pace. The 3 seems legitimate because he doesn't need the lead. The 5 is more of a horse that kind of needs to be forward. It doesn't look like he's going to be. The 4 is just questionable with the layoff and stuff. But the 6 is the other one that looks like a horse that potentially could hit the board at a big price. So playing around with the 3 and the 6 and trying to figure out and spreading some of the other vertical positions, trying to make some money in race 4 at Aqueduct on Friday, December the 7th. John Doyle from Optics EQ. Check us out, opticseq.com. We give you a lot of different ways to play the ponies and give you a visual way to do it. Thanks for listening.